There's a thrill in watching danger unfold on screen. The roar of engines, a body crashing through glass, explosions lighting up the sky. It feels unpredictable alive. But deep down, we know the truth. It's controlled chaos, calculated risk, a safe illusion. Except when it isn't. Some action films go too far, past rehearsals, past insurance policies, past common sense. These are movies where the danger wasn't a special effect. It was very real, and sometimes irreversible. We're talking about productions where directors dismissed safety for the sake of the shot, where actors bled sometimes permanently for a scene that lasted seconds, where the pursuit of realism became reckless, and behind the camera, no one was quite sure how far things would go. Hollywood has a way of burying these stories. The lawsuits are settled, the footage is edited, the interviews cut short, because acknowledging what really happened would mean admitting that fiction and reality sometimes collided violently. And what you're about to see isn't just a list of intense movies, it's a record of when the illusion shattered, when a car crash wasn't entirely fake, when a fall left bones broken, when someone never got back up. Some of these films are celebrated, others quietly disappeared. But all of them share one thing. They pushed the limits of cinema, and in doing so, they pushed people too far. These are the 15 action movies that Hollywood would rather you remember for their spectacle but forget for their scars. Let's begin. Fact Hasson, The Dark Knight, 2008. A one-take gamble with a truck. One truck, one street, one chance. For a split second in The Dark Knight, a semi-truck catapults into the air, flips vertically, and crashes like a steel coffin onto the pavement. It's the kind of moment you assume was created on a computer. But Christopher Nolan doesn't do assumptions. He does reality. Nolan demanded the stunt be performed for real. No digital manipulation, no backup shot. A custom rig was built beneath the trailer to launch the entire vehicle upright. The margin for error? Non-existent. It all depended on a single hydraulic explosion and a stunt driver with nerves of steel. If anything went wrong, the truck could tip sideways, slam into buildings, or worse, crush the person inside. When the mechanism fired, the truck lifted into the air with terrifying grace and smashed down exactly as planned. Crew gasped. The studio, watching via monitor, reportedly panicked because they hadn't been told the stunt was practical. That scene became one of the film's defining visuals, but it was never meant to be repeated. It couldn't be, because that wasn't a VFX shot. It was a one-time roll of the dice with lives in the balance, and the next film didn't just flirt with danger, it strapped it to the hood and hit the gas. Fact #2, Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015. Filmed on the edge of control. George Miller didn't want stylized action. He wanted real metal colliding with real consequences. Shot across the unforgiving deserts of Namibia, Mad Max. Fury Road pushed the concept of practical filmmaking into full-blown lunacy. The production featured custom-built vehicles flying across dunes, crashing into each other in orchestrated chaos without the safety net of green screen. Charlize Theron and Tom Hardy weren't standing in front of backdrops. They were strapped to machines moving at lethal speed. One stuntwoman, suspended between two war rigs, had to leap while the vehicles were in motion. A mistimed second would have meant certain death. Every moment was a high-stakes rehearsal. Crews battled dehydration. Medical evacuations were not uncommon. Bones were broken. Blood was real. But Miller believed audiences could tell the difference between digital noise and tangible danger. And he was right. Fury Road didn't just entertain, it overwhelmed. Because when cameras roll on actual madness, the screen can't lie. And in the next case, one fatal mistake ensured the line between pretend and tragedy vanished forever. Fact #3. The Crow, 1994. A prop gun, a real death. It should have been a star-making performance. Instead, it became a eulogy. While filming The Crow, Brandon Lee was shot during a scene involving a handgun. The prop was supposed to be harmless. Instead, it fired a projectile left inside the barrel from a prior setup, something no one had checked. The bullet tore through Lee's abdomen. He collapsed. At first, crew thought he was acting. He wasn't. By the time medics arrived, it was too late. The investigation revealed a cascade of failures. The film's weapons expert had been dismissed to save money. Safety procedures were rushed. The gun had been handled by someone with no formal training. Despite the horror, the film was completed. Lee's remaining scenes were filled in using body doubles and early digital effects. And The Crow became a cult classic, its aesthetic haunted by the tragedy that made it infamous. What's chilling is how avoidable it was. The danger wasn't in the script, it was in the silence, the shortcuts, the assumption that everything was fine. And in the next film, the threat wasn't a malfunction, it was the wilderness, and it didn't care about anyone's call sheet. Fact Hash 4, Apocalypto, 2006. Filming on the edge of collapse. The jungle doesn't take direction, it doesn't wait for camera resets, it swallows. During the making of Apocalypto, Mel Gibson chose to shoot in the raw wilderness of Mexico. No soundstage, no studio comforts, just dense vegetation, heat, and unpredictability. The cast and crew weren't just telling a survival story, they were living one. Rudy Youngblood, the film's star, performed a massive waterfall jump himself. What should have been a controlled stunt became a near-death plunge. He surfaced, dazed, concussed, and bleeding. The shot made it into the film, so did his fear. Production faced venomous wildlife, contaminated water, equipment failure, and non-stop physical exhaustion. Extras fainted, crew members were hospitalized. The jungle pushed back, and Gibson refused to let up. He believed pain created authenticity, and on screen, it shows. Apocalypto doesn't feel safe because it wasn't. It breathes with the same threat that hovered just off camera throughout the entire shoot. And in the next story, the pain came not from the environment, but from a decision to leap before looking. Fact Hash 5, Rambo, First Blood, 1982. When the star took the fall, Stallone didn't want wires. He didn't want a double. He wanted the drop. In one of First Blood's most brutal moments, John Rambo throws himself off a cliff, crashing through trees before hitting the earth below. Sylvester Stallone insisted on doing the stunt himself. He wanted the realism. He got it. Mid-fall, he collided with a branch harder than expected. The landing crushed one of his ribs. The scream he lets out in the film, it wasn't rehearsed, it was real. Paramedics arrived. Filming paused. The studio wanted the scene rewritten. Stallone said no. The pain, he claimed, belonged in the story, and so it stayed. The moment became iconic. But behind the stoic stare was a man who could barely breathe, and a lesson that commitment sometimes breaks bones, not records. In the next film, though, it wasn't just one man risking injury. It was an entire production spiraling out of control over decades. Fact Hash 6, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, 2018, a dream that fought back. Some films are difficult to make. This one fought to never exist. Terry Gilliam spent nearly 30 years trying to complete The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. The first attempt in 2000 was a disaster. Days into filming, a flash flood wrecked the set and warped the landscape. The location no longer matched the footage already shot. Continuity? Gone. Then the lead actor, Jean Rochefort, suffered a slipped disc and had to leave. Insurance companies withdrew support. The project collapsed. Lawsuits followed. Gilliam's vision was crushed under legal and logistical debris. He didn't give up. Over the next 2 decades, he rebuilt it, piece by piece, recasting, rewriting, restarting. The version that finally premiered in 2018 wasn't the film Gilliam had dreamed of, but it was the one he survived to finish. And perhaps that was the point, because some productions are haunted by circumstance. This one, by obsession. And in the next film, obsession took the form of a broken ankle and a director who refused to say cut. Fact Hash 7, Mission Impossible, Fallout, 2018. The jump that shattered more than expectations. Tom Cruise is known for taking risks, but in Fallout, he pushed it one jump too far. While filming a rooftop chase in London, Cruise attempted a running leap between 2 buildings. The stunt had been rehearsed, measured, timed, but in execution, something went wrong. He hit the wall hard, his ankle taking the full force of the landing. It snapped instantly. The footage captured the moment of impact, the grimace, the limp. Cruise didn't break character. He got up. He finished the shot. That exact take made it into the final film. Production shut down for weeks. Insurance costs soared, but Cruise returned, still refusing to use a double for even riskier stunts, including flying a helicopter in real combat conditions. The injury wasn't planned, but the commitment? Entirely real. And the next film didn't require daredevil acting because the danger was already built into its bone. Fact Hashite, Ben-Hur, 1959, a race that was too real to be safe. Few scenes in film history rival the chariot race in Ben-Hur. It's chaotic, thunderous, and terrifyingly fast. And it was all real. The scene was filmed using actual horses, real chariots, and stuntmen driving at deadly speeds. There were no digital aids, no post-production safety nets, just wood, metal, and momentum. Rumors swirled for decades that a stuntman was killed during a crash. MGM has denied it, but some versions of the footage were cut, others disappeared. Charlton Heston trained intensively to drive his own team of horses. During filming, he nearly fell from his chariot in the final lap. His white-knuckled grip wasn't in the script, it was desperation. The finished race is stunning, but the studio never acknowledged how close it came to real loss. And in the next film, real loss wasn't a possibility, it was captured in real time. Fact #9 Roar 1981, where the lions were real and so was the blood. You'd think no one would film a movie surrounded by untrained wild animal. Roar proved otherwise. Tippi Hedren and Noel Marshall envisioned a film showing harmony between humans and big cats. What they ended up with was a 10-year nightmare where over 70 people were injured, some nearly killed. There were no trainers, no sedatives, no cages. The lions were let loose on set. The actors were told to stay calm. It didn't work. Cinematographer Jan de Bont had his scalp torn off. Melanie Griffith was mauled. Hedren herself was bitten and clawed. Noel Marshall suffered so many bites he developed gangrene. They kept filming. Most of the injuries are visible in the final film. The chaos wasn't staged. The panic on screen? Completely authentic. Roar remains one of the most dangerous film productions in history, not because of the story it told, but because of how close it came to ending lives for it. And the next film didn't involve animals. It involved water and temperatures just above freezing. Fact #0 Titanic 1997. The water wasn't acting. James Cameron wanted realism, so he gave his actors hypothermia. To capture the sinking of the Titanic with brutal authenticity, the cast was submerged in water so cold it shocked their systems. Extras turned blue, crew members slipped, hit their heads, and passed out. The tanks were kept barely above freezing. Kate Winslet nearly drowned. Her coat snagged on underwater debris during a take. She escaped, gasping, and furious, later revealing she refused to work with Cameron again unless she had full control. And then came the PCP incident. An unknown crew member laced the catering chowder with hallucinogens. Dozens were hospitalized mid-shoot. Chaos spread off screen, just as it did in the story. But the cameras never stopped. Cameron believed that the suffering translated into cinema. He might have been right, because Titanic doesn't just look cold, it feels cold. And that's not special effects. That's exhaustion, frostbite, and pain caught on camera. Next up, a film where the camera wasn't just watching the action, it was the action. Fact #9 Hardcore Henry 2015. Filming in first person, bleeding in real time. Imagine being the actor, the cameraman, and the stunt double all at once. That's how Hardcore Henry was made. Shot entirely from a first-person perspective, the film required its lead to perform complex stunts while literally wearing the camera on his face. Every crash, every fall, every blow had to be executed and captured simultaneously. There were no marks to hit, no second camera, no room for error. In one sequence, the performer jumps through glass, rolls onto pavement, and is nearly hit by an oncoming car. The lens fogs up from his breath. Blood from a cut on his brow leaks across the view. That wasn't planned. It wasn't cleaned up. It was real. Hardcore Henry didn't have a safety net. It had GoPros, duct tape, and a crew too stubborn to quit. The result is a dizzying, brutal experience. Not because of clever direction, but because what you're watching is a human body being put through hell in real time. And the next film wasn't shot in the wild or on a set. It was filmed on the streets with real guns, real bullets, and no permission. Fact #2 El Mariachi 1992. Shot fast, dirty, and nearly shot for real. Robert Rodriguez didn't wait for a green light. He grabbed a camera, a few friends, and started filming. El Mariachi was made on a $7,000 budget, and it shows. Guns were real, locations were real, the risk, very real. Scenes were filmed guerrilla style on the streets of Ciudad Acuña, Mexico. There were no permits, no warning to locals. In one take, a bystander mistook the gunfire for an actual crime and called the police. Officers arrived, weapons drawn. No one was hurt, but it came close. Rodriguez himself admitted that in several scenes, actors pointed weapons at each other at point-blank range. No plexiglass, no coordination, just trust and fear. Some filmmakers stretch a dollar. El Mariachi stretched sanity. And in the next film, insanity meant dragging an entire steamship across the jungle. Not metaphorically, literally. Fact Hasson 3, Fitzcarraldo 1982, when obsession moved mountains, literally. Most directors would build a model. Werner Herzog built madness. In Fitzcarraldo, the story follows a man dragging a steamship over a mountain. Herzog refused to fake it. He ordered his crew to pull a full-sized, 320-ton ship up a jungle hillside without digital effects or mechanical shortcuts. Everything that could go wrong did. The ropes snapped, the pulleys broke, the ship slid dangerously, nearly crushing the crew. One misstep would have killed half the set. The production was plagued by disease, injuries, and even a fatal plane crash. The Amazon didn't care about artistic vision, it punished it. Herzog's lead actor, Klaus Kinski, was so volatile that local tribesmen offered to kill him. Herzog declined, but later said he was tempted. The final film is hypnotic, but behind its beauty is the weight of obsession and a level of danger no insurance company would touch today. And in the next case, the only thing more reckless than the director was the chase itself. Fact Hasson 4, The French Connection, 1971, filmed without permission or brakes. The most gripping car chase in cinema history? Totally illegal. In The French Connection, a car barrels through the streets of Brooklyn in pursuit of an elevated train. What most don't know, there were no permits, no stunt extras. Most of the people on the street had no idea a movie was being filmed. Director William Friedkin wanted realism. He got near collisions, real traffic, and genuine panic. In one scene, the driver clips a civilian vehicle. That wasn't in the script. Neither was the terrified pedestrian who barely jumps out of the way. The city almost shut down production. Lawsuits loomed. But the footage stayed. Hollywood cheered the rawness, the grit, the danger. But few realized just how much was risked to capture those few seconds of chaos. And in the final film on our list, chaos wasn't filmed, it was inflicted on a 4-year-old child. Fact Hasson 5, Come and See, 1985. Trauma that never left the set. War was never supposed to look like this. Come and See, a Soviet anti-war masterpiece, follows a boy through Nazi-occupied Belarus. The performance feels so raw, so broken. It doesn't seem possible that it was acted, because it wasn't. Alexei Kravchenko was just 14. He was exposed to real explosions, live ammunition. His hair turned gray during production. His face gaunt, haunted wasn't makeup. It was real-time psychological collapse. He later admitted that his memory blacked out large parts of the shoot. His mind, like his characters, couldn't process what he was experiencing. The film's most horrific scene, a village burned alive, was so intense that even adult extras wept uncontrollably. Nothing was held back. Because Klimov, the director, didn't want to depict horror, he wanted to inflict it. The result is a film so powerful, it feels like a crime to watch. And maybe, for those who made it, it was. But if you think this was as far as cinema ever went, wait until you hear what one film did with a corpse. Bonus fact, Game of Death, 1978. When a funeral became the final scene, Bruce Lee died before Game of Death could be finished. What came after is still hard to believe. Rather than shelve the film, the studio reassembled it using body doubles, recycled footage, and visual sleight of hand. It was clumsy. It was strange. But then it crossed a line. To complete a funeral scene, they inserted real footage from Bruce Lee's actual memorial service. The body in the coffin? That's not a prop. It's Bruce Lee himself. His face, his hands, his final moments used not as tribute, but as a plot device. Audiences at the time didn't know. When the truth emerged, backlash followed. But it was too late. The film had made its money. The scene remained. What was supposed to be the legend swan song became something far darker. A moment where cinema didn't just borrow from life, it exploited death. And in doing so, Game of Death became more than a film. It became a warning. So what do you think? Are these scenes acts of commitment or reckless endangerment? Art or exploitation? Where should we draw the line between realism and risk? Tell us, which of these moments shocked you the most? And which one should never have happened?